Welcome to another episode of The Scuttlebutt. I'm your host, Sean Hall, Director of Programming with the Veterans Breakfast Club. We're a nonprofit in Western PA whose mission is to create communities of listening around veterans and their stories to connect, educate, heal, and inspire. This episode's guest is Christine Walker. Christine Walker is a United States Navy and Desert Storm veteran. She is also the editor-in-chief of At Ease magazine. She joins us for the program today to talk about her service and also At Ease magazine, how long it's been around, all of the things that you can find within it. It's an incredible publication. I'm going to put the link in the chat so that you can subscribe to At Ease magazine. I hope that you do. I hope that you check it out. I really enjoyed talking with Christine. She was a phenomenal guest. And please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube so you're the first to know whenever we release new episodes. And you can always email me at Sean, S-H-A-U-N, at veteransbreakfastclub.org with any questions or thoughts, maybe even suggestions of future episodes. I'm happy to always get those. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast and enjoy the show. Christine Walker, I'm so excited to have you join the Scuttlebutt today. You're editor-in-chief of At Ease magazine. Excited to get into that, into your publishing background, but also you're a Navy veteran, so I'd like to talk about that. But please introduce yourself. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to meet you guys and get to know you. And, I've never heard of Veterans Breakfast Club before, so I'm super excited to know you guys and what you guys are doing. And we have a lot of affinity for storytelling in common. So basically, I am Christine Walker. I'm the owner of Double Dog Publishing and At Ease Veterans magazine. And it is a magazine 100% written by vets for vets. And that's very unusual right now. There's a lot of veteran magazines, there's a lot of military magazines, but so many of them really are written to the civilian. We are not. We are written to the veteran. And so we are honest, often unfiltered.
Yeah.
But we are always real. So, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful coffee table magazine in print. And then we also have an e-magazine flip book that we have been providing for free, although in 2023 that will change.
Well, great. Let's get to the magazine in a minute, but let's first dive in. Easy softball question to start. Why Navy?
Okay. I come up from a very long line of military service in my family. I have 14 members, from my great grandfather to my brothers, my stepbrother, my cousin.
Does that date back to World War I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
My great grandfather was in World War I. Both my grandfathers were, my grandfather on my maternal grandfather was military police in the Army. My paternal grandfather was a cook in the Army, and he was in the European theater. My other grandfather, who was an MP, was stationed at Fort Carson. And there's a very long story to that that we never knew about. So at some point, I'm probably doing a story on that. Yeah. And then, of course, my great aunt, she served as a flight nurse during World War II and the Korean War. Wow. And she is the only living female to receive the Distinguished Flying Cross for her service.
Incredible.
In fact, just a quick little blurb, that's her, Captain Rita Bonham. And she was in a plane crash right as they took off. They were doing a hop from Japan to Korea to drop off supplies, pick up guys, wounded, and all that. And the plane crashed literally 300 yards off the runway. And she survived. She was able to get out and help save 27 men, get them into life rafts. And she had a very big voice when she needed it. I do not have that. And she was able to whistle and get the attention of a fishing trawler. And ended up saving the lives of not only herself, but 27 men.
Wow.
So yeah, so her story is in our inaugural edition. And at some point we'll do another print. But
and somebody and you can go back as a subscriber or somebody who you can purchase the original, or
yes, we actually do have extra copies of the inaugural edition. A lot has changed with the magazine. But anyway, so there was her. my stepfather was Navy, my father was Air Force, my uncle was Navy, my brother's a Marine,
Hmm.
my stepbrother was Navy.
Oh,
My
the only
cousin
Marine.
Coast
Was he
Guard.
was he given a little ribbing for joining Marines?
No, actually, because my great uncle was also a Marine. He was KIA in Iwo Jima
Mm,
on
okay.
March 3rd.
Wow.
So, so yeah, I'm very, as you can imagine. So joining the military for me, especially with my Aunt Janita's influence, and it was just like a no-brainer. It was just like, well, of course I'm going to join the military.
And
Why
it
wouldn't
wasn't
I?
like it wasn't like everybody still talked about it around the dinner table. Like there was, you grew up in that environment of service.
Yeah, I mean, it was just no big deal.
Hmm.
And of course, when I went in, Desert Shield was
Hmm.
just starting. I went in December, and on January 17th, 1991, Desert Storm started. And that literally shaved a week off of my boot camp. And, it was like, I can't say what I was going to say, very military terms. But needless to say, it was, full steam ahead. And that's, and then I went to A school after that, and then my duty station after that.
Was military service what you expected it to be?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Kind
It
of
was
wasn't surprising. It was just like, okay, we're in it
by
now.
that time my brother had been a Marine for 6 years.
Okay.
Wait, 6 years? Yes, 5 years. And so I had been going back and forth to Pendleton to visit him during the summer,
Hmm.
during my junior high and high school days. And so by the time I joined, he had already been in the Marine Corps for 5 or 6 years. And I was like, okay, why not? Why not join? So,
At that time, were they accepting women in Army and Marine Corps?
oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. So this was 1990, 1991. So
Hmm.
yeah, we were very well into active duty service for women. That actually occurred in 1948 when
Mm.
Eisenhower signed the bill that women could go full-time active duty military.
So you chose Navy, other than the military family, but Navy specifically. Why didn't you go Army, Marine Corps, Air Force?
Well, one, I wasn't a very athletic person.
Hmm.
I mean, I was thin, at the time, not that way anymore. But at the time, I was very thin. I was very active, but I was more of like a swimmer. I was
Hmm.
more of a dancer. I really wasn't like, don't ask me to run back then because I looked ridiculous. And so I thought, well, there's a lot of running. Literally, this is my reasoning for not joining the Marine Corps. There's a lot of running. So, and I'm like, well, I'm a good swimmer. And then when I was talking to the recruiters, Army really wasn't an issue. I just didn't have any affinity. My
Hmm.
brother was a Marine. So there was the whole Navy Marine Corps, um, thing going on there. So,
Hmm.
squid and a jarhead, why not? My stepdad was Navy. And then, of course, I went in as a hospital corpsman. So I already had my
Hmm.
rates before I even signed the paperwork.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew that I would be getting a Marine Corps base most likely.
Hmm.
So, and that's what happened. So I went in as a corpsman, went to A school, went through hospital corpsman school, and then was immediately granted brother sister duty. My brother was stationed at New River Air Station.
Hmm.
He was a helo mechanic at the time, and I was stationed at blue side of Camp Lejeune, hospital side.
How did you enter the military that way with that rank already, or rating?
Well, it was a rate.
Rate. Sorry,
So
rate.
yeah, so it was just a guaranteed rate. It's just because my ASVAB scores, they were pretty high.
Okay.
So it was kind of a no-brainer. And corpsman, they always need corpsman,
Yeah.
house corpsman. And so yeah, so that was, I went in with that rate and went through boot camp, and then ended up getting brother sister duty with my brother. And literally 30 days after I arrived, he was off on deployment
And did you ever get
for the next
deployed?
9 months. No, I was not. At that time, women, this was pre 1994.
Okay.
So a little bit of modern military history that typically there were some women who were deployed um, as, at that time, but mostly women were not in combat zones.
Hmm.
They were in, I mean, and if they were in combat zones, it was really in like logistics and, services kind of thing. They weren't on the front line.
Right.
And that didn't change till 1994.
Okay.
So that, yeah, I was pre uh, women in combat.
And how long did you stay in?
I went in as a reservist,
Okay.
and then Desert Storm happened, went to A school, went active duty, and then about 92, that's when they really started cutting back the military numbers. And so 1992, they were doing forced retirements, and they got me because I went in as reserve.
Hmm.
So they said, "Oh, okay, you went in as a reserve. We don't need you to be active duty anymore. Have a nice life." And I'm like,
Interesting.
"No," because
Yeah.
I wanted to complete I wanted to do 4 years and then probably re-up. And, in my brain, I was like going to have a career in the military.
Hmm. How
And
how did that how did that change you? How did that affect you?
it was a bummer.
Hmm.
I was very upset. But, when Uncle Sam says he doesn't need you anymore, and they're
Yeah.
cutting, they're just cutting everybody. And it wasn't just me. I mean, they were giving telling people who had a year to retire, okay, you're done. And they're like, what? So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot going on around 1992, 93.
Was there a point after that where you could have re-enlisted?
There is, but I was pretty jaded.
Hmm.
so, so I didn't want to go back in and have them tell me, no, you're done now
Yeah.
again. So I just kind of literally became kind of a hippie
Hmm.
and just kind of went wherever the wind took me. I mean, not that I wasn't doing things, don't get me wrong. I went through floral design school and graduated from there. And, did I use it? No, well, yes, once. Then I went to the Texas Peace Officer Academy in 96 and graduated there, and then immediately went into private security in Southern California for a
Hmm.
pharmaceutical company.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it was a lot of twists and turns and a lot of just
Trying
doing,
to find your purpose.
yeah, doing what I wanted to do
Yeah.
and not really care. I mean, I had a job, my rent was paid. Really, was
Yeah.
there anything more? And of
Right.
course, back then there were no transition services for
Yeah.
military.
Well, it's even hard. It's still hard to find them, but they're better ones now. But yeah.
But back then, I went to logistics. I got my last check. I lived off base at the time, so I got per
Hmm.
diem for my move. I got my DD 214,
Hmm.
kind of a kick in the butt, and have a nice life. That
Yeah.
was it. There was no transition. And, I didn't know anything about veteran service organizations, nothing. To
Hmm.
me, like American Legion, DFW, DFW, VFW, those things were for like old guys, you know.
Yeah.
It really wasn't much for us. So yeah, it was a different time. So I just kind of went where the tide took me.
Did your family having all of that military service and that being so ingrained in your family when Uncle Sam was like, "See ya," how did your family react to that? Were they angry for you, or they were just like,
Oh,
"This is what you wanted"?
they were angry for me.
Yeah.
They were not angry at me
Right.
because up until that point I had a really good service record.
Yeah.
I was angry, and then I
Right.
got very bitter for a very long time. Um, because this is not what I wanted. I didn't want to
Yeah.
have to, figure out my life. I wanted
Hmm.
to just serve and do what I did.
Right.
And I was very happy at Lejeune. I was very happy serving in the
Hmm.
military. And I was not happy at all. And it was only because I went in as a reservist.
Right. And
And
I find this interesting because where you're at now, so passionate about veteran stories, at some point you had to resolve that. You had to sort of get
did.
over that anger or forgive it to be able to say, I want to commit my life to this. How did you come about that?
That happened about, I want to say about 7 years ago.
Okay, so
Um,
it took a while.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Well, and then for a long time, I would be like in Veterans Day, or I would stand up when they would say, "Hey, we'd like to honor vets," and and I would get confronted after the fact with these older men, and I know they were well-meaning, but it was just like always on the defensive about serving, always on the defensive, and I don't know what their issues were. I don't know. But I do know that after a while, I got sick and tired of trying to defend myself.
Hmm.
So for 25 years, I pretended not to be a veteran.
Wow.
And it probably had to do with being the female thing.
Yeah.
Because, men throw on a cap, it says veteran, the name of their ship, the name of their unit, and, the war era they're in,
Hmm.
and everything's hunky dory.
Right.
Thank you for your service. We're so grateful for you. Women get out, you know, and especially as you age, middle age, things happen. You don't look like a veteran anymore. Your hair is long. Everybody assumes that, if you ask for a veteran discount, it's for your husband, not for you.
Right.
And so, so there was a lot of stuff. I just, I didn't get bitter at that. I don't blame civilians for that. I
Mhm.
don't blame anybody for that. It's just how it is. But I'm not the only one who experiences that.
True. And
And
I know that there's a big movement now to like wear a shirt that says this is what a veteran looks like. I've seen
right,
those around and it's like
right. Or,
not what
you
you expect.
know, right, right. And it's like, kind of a Rosie to the Riveter kind of thing. It's
Yep.
like, I am the vet,
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of branding and stuff going on, which is awesome. But it didn't exist when I was going through it. And, it really caused me to dive deep. I took my sea bag, which was full of my uniforms and
Hmm.
everything, and I threw it in the back of my closet and literally out of sight, out of mind. It was like, pretending I never served. The problem is everything about me was still military.
Yeah.
How I walk, how I talk, how I eat, how I get ready.
Yeah.
If I have to spend more than 20 minutes getting ready, it's too much.
Right.
Seriously,
Yeah.
even to this day.
Hmm.
If I can't get ready in, 10 minutes, 12, 20 minutes, it's too much.
Yeah.
Um, I still eat fast.
Hmm.
Um, it's like, it's just a lot of it so ingrained because I was 18 years old,
Hmm.
18, 19 years old when I went through boot camp. It was very, and it was what I wanted my life to be.
Right.
And I took it very seriously. But it didn't work out for me, but it's okay because, what I'm doing now is kind of making up for it.
Right.
And because of all that I've been through, now I'm kind of a mama bear. Kind of
Like a
the
mentor and a
uh,
right.
yeah, I'm kind of one of those. It's like, girl, I've been through it. I know it. And,
You
we're here for you.
your aunt had been through it before you did. Did she offer you any advice during those difficult sort of years?
It was so different with her
Mm.
because she actually got out. She got out and then she went back in full-time active duty service and during the Korean War. But after the plane crash, she never flew again.
Mm.
And she literally just went to Georgia. She was an instructor for literally a few months
Hmm.
and then got married and put that life behind her.
Wow.
And yeah, so, and what's funny is I never even knew this story until I was like researching for the magazine and actually found it on YouTube.
And you were like, wait a second. You did
So
what?
well, she had passed away
Oh, okay.
in 94.
Yeah.
And so I'd seen her just a few years before, but I
Hmm.
never knew the story. My grandmother, she's the sister of my grandma. My grandmother never told me the story.
Yeah.
My dad never told me the story. My brother knew it. He never told me the story. I'm
Interesting.
like, what the heck is going on? So anyway, I found it. I was able to get in touch with my cousin,
Hmm.
her daughter, Renee. And so when we were starting to do, I'm like, you know what? The first cover is going to be my aunt.
Hmm.
And what I did is I took a lot of previously written stuff and I went through it literally line by line with my cousin, who said, no, that's not right. That is right. That isn't right. This is right. And so it's probably the most complete, perfect work of her story there is.
So what do you remember the day that you were like, I can let all this go and I want to commit this new sort of passion and direction of my life to veteran stories and create a tomb, Addie's magazine
Right.
for everyone.
Well, 7 years ago, it was really about being brought into the fold.
Hmm.
And there was a pretty established veteran organization, and I went ahead and joined. And the gentlemen who were in charge of it at that time were wonderful, very inclusive, very kind. But not everybody at the organization was inclusive or kind.
Yeah.
Um, so I just kind of ignored them and just kind of hung out with the people who were generous and decent. And I really kind of there was kind of a rebirth of that camaraderie.
Yeah.
I have always loved, don't get me wrong, just because I pretended not to be a veteran didn't mean I didn't love my veteran brothers and sisters.
Hmm.
I just I didn't feel like there was a place for me.
Yeah.
And so as more and more of a place became available and I started connecting with more and more vets, it really just kind of snowballed into something that I was very, very proud of and started, um, reestablishing, who I was as a veteran. So,
Hmm. So how
so,
so how did Addie's come about? Where was the nugget that started that idea?
so, so in 2017, I actually started working. I was involved with this veteran service organization, but I was working for a local paper,
Hmm.
great little paper. It was like 150 years old. It was great. The editor at the time was a real piece of work, kind of a curmudgeon, not very friendly, people friendly
Hmm.
at all. But he was really good at what he did,
Yeah.
and I really fell in love with publishing. And I wasn't allowed to write for the paper because I was just front office help, but I did do some ad sales and I did do a lot of designing, which is kind of my background. So
Yeah.
um and I learned a lot from him, and how to like literally take a publication from concept to finish fairly quickly.
Yeah.
After working there, I started a little publishing company with a friend of mine.
Hmm.
And it was just for like a little community rag that we were doing. And it was great. And we did that for probably a year and a half. But over time, I just was like, is this it? Like, I'm not making a lot of money. I'm not able to really support myself doing this.
Yeah.
But I love publishing, but it's like I don't want, this isn't my community. I didn't live there. It wasn't a part of who I was. And so I had to have some major surgery, and I was in the hospital. It was right in the middle of the pandemic,
Hmm.
and so there were no visitors allowed. And here in Dallas at the time, the Blue Angels were going around hospitals and doing flybys and formation.
Yeah.
And so I'd had my surgery, and I just happened to be in the hospital at the time they were flying around doing formations.
Hmm.
And so from my window, I literally saw the Blue Angels in formation. And, it was just like, it was at that moment, I'm like, you know what? I love publishing. I love my veterans.
Hmm.
Let's just
Marry the two.
create a veterans magazine.
Yeah.
And so I have the Blue Angels to thank for that inspiring moment.
Yeah.
Uh,
Totally.
but I got out, and so I went to my business partners and I said, listen, I love you guys to death, but I'm not satisfied doing this. I want to start my own publishing company. I'm going to start a veterans magazine. And they're like, oh, well, we understand. We love you. If you ever want to come back, let us know, but we're going to support you. So, I didn't want to burn bridges.
Totally.
And so I went to started my own company. And at first it was just going to be like a little county magazine. It was just going to be, a little 40-page county veterans magazine every quarter, just to kind of the goings on. But because it was in the middle of the pandemic and it was a brand new publishing company and a brand new magazine, a lot of businesses really didn't want to take a chance putting skin in the game, meaning money, so we could actually produce the magazine.
Right.
So then I thought, well, we'll go regional. And, still a lot of companies didn't want to put skin in the game. I wasn't known. I didn't have the data, the numbers, the analytics. So it wasn't, for them, it wasn't about helping me build something. It was more like, what am I going to get out of it?
Yeah.
Which is fine. They're business owners, and that's completely 100% their right.
Yeah.
But I started getting emails from veterans across the country, and DMs from people on Facebook, and
Direct messages for my audience members who may not know what a DM is. That sounds very military using an
yes,
acronym, but
it's not. But so and I thought, well, let me think about it. So I took November and December. I kind of put everything on hold in 2020, and I did a lot of number crunching, to be honest, because this is a business.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to not only provide what I say I'm going to provide as far as printed magazines, but I had to, I have to run the business. We have a little bit of overhead, even though I'm able to keep it very low. And so I crunched numbers and knew that I was in this for the long haul. We weren't going to make any money the first couple of years.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Right.
I knew that we could make enough to produce a magazine. And so that's exactly what we did. And so our very first issue went national. I redesigned our website to be national, redesigned our business plan to be more of a hybrid, to start with advertising funding, and then eventually we'll go into subscriber based. So eventually we'll get enough subscribers to support the magazine.
And was that difficult to make that adjustment? And how hard was it to find even advertisers to jump onto a magazine that is brand new?
It was brutal. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Every issue has been brutal. Because the bigger that we get, the more people want to see bigger numbers. And it's like, you have to understand, we grew organically. We have yet to spend a penny on any marketing for ourselves.
Wow.
All the marketing that I've done has been absolutely organic by building relationships with other veterans and veteran organizations. And that's how it grew. And so now we went from 40 pages, our inaugural edition, to our next issue coming out this winter will be 84 pages.
That's incredible.
And the printer we have is top notch, because for us, it's not just about, the numbers and the data. It's about the stories. It's about providing a product that's excellent.
Yeah.
And we don't go halfway. We never have. Not since our inaugural edition. Everything we've done has been top notch and with excellence. And and
it's like
yes,
a core value of the magazine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, we may be a little more unfiltered than most publications, but we're not writing it to people who are easily offended. We're writing it to vets. So.
Well, that's part of it, is that you said that's by veterans for veterans.
Right.
So how did you get the network of veterans to work on the magazine? Who did you
know
reach
what?
out?
That is the most incredible part of this whole story. They came to me.
So you wrote the whole first one yourself, or how did that
No, I had people helping
chime in. Yeah.
But a lot of people just came to me and said, I want to help, I want to write. I'm like, okay, right. And
Yeah.
then over time, it has just snowballed. And to this day, I mean, yeah, I'd still do a lot of writing,
Hmm.
but, you know, um, I've got some staff writers, I've got some feature writers, I've got contributing writers. So there's three tiers of writers.
Yeah.
Myself, um, one of my staff writers has graciously stepped in. He is a Vietnam vet, phenomenal writer. He
Hmm.
won't say that, but I will. And has stepped in to be my temporary assistant editor.
Hmm.
Um, and so now we are literally 100% written by vets for vets.
It's great.
Yeah.
How did you like the inaugural issue is a difficult thing because it's
Right,
like, how do we kick this off? How do we jump out of the gate and establish ourselves as this quality product with good
right,
storytelling, readability, creativity. There's so
right,
many things that you're trying to do with that first issue. Can you lead
right.
me through sort of like how that got put together?
Good Lord. Our inaugural issue literally took 4 months to put together.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Um, but it did come out in March of 2021. Now, a lot has changed. Some of the things I did, I'm like, why did I do that? That looks awful. But as far as designing, but immediately we got, I had a assistant editor at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
she had a master's in writing. So she was a lot of help with editing and helping to write content for us. But I just made a lot of connections. And so we, went through and put it together. And I have a background in graphic design, and that's was my role in this other publishing company, was creative director.
Yeah.
So putting a magazine together wasn't an issue. Um, but it's just getting all the stories and all the, getting all those put together and and it just came together. I
How do
mean,
you, I would imagine one of the tougher things, especially as you gain in popularity, is all the stories that keep coming in. How do you select them? How do you say that one's right for a main feature? That one is sort of a side story. This one, maybe we just say, no, we can't do this one.
so honestly, I've never said no.
Hmm,
Never.
that's great.
I've had people come in. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who send me their stories, and I've never said no. But don't think for 1 second that there isn't a lot of work that goes in to sometimes, occasionally, fixing stories that maybe need a little bit more help
Right.
than
And when you say fixing a story, that's not adding fictional elements. Is it fixing it just to like give it more
grammatically,
clarity? Yeah, grammatically, make sure that it's
grammatically,
something that
with
someone has a pleasure reading.
continuity,
Right.
right? And I reserve the right to retitle anything. That's
Uh-huh.
my superpower. Draw people in. Um, and I've gotten to the point where, yeah, it's like, okay, a 500, for example, like a 500-word article
Hmm.
submitted, we go through, we don't edit it, we don't change the veteran's voice. Now, sometimes I'll move the continuity paragraphs around so it has a much better readability and continuity.
Right.
But at the end of the day, a 500-word article actually turns into about a 5-minute read.
Okay.
you know and so we really try not to have, other than our cover story and maybe occasionally another one, we really try not to have any stories that are more than 30-minute reads. I mean, 20-minute reads, I'm sorry.
Well, still,
Uh,
that's a really interesting. I had not thought of that in terms of magazine publishing. That the stories you want in there shouldn't, should have a certain amount of time it takes you to read them.
right,
So when you have an 80-page magazine, you're able to fit a lot of stories in there that aren't going to go over 20 minutes. Some will be 5, some will be between that 5
right,
and 20.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Some will be less than 3. Some will
Mm-hmm.
be 10. Some will be 15. But this issue coming up, it's going to be 84 pages. We have 36 stories. So
Wow. And how often does the magazine come out?
quarterly. So
Okay.
it comes out in March, June, September, and December.
So you're talking at the end of the year having what roughly 300 some pages of stories.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And it's, and what's really cool too is our e-magazine. It really is, we provided it free for the first 2 years. But now it's getting to the point where it's like, yeah, we're gonna have to start charging for it.
yeah.
Just because our expenses are going up with the actual flip book. So we're gonna have to start charging in 23. But everything that's been free thus far will remain free.
That's good.
So
And I was gonna go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, all the issues that have come before will remain free. It'll just be the new ones coming in 2023.
And I was going to ask about that sort of age of technology. A lot of people are like, I'm going to subscribe to Good Housekeeping, but I don't want the physical copy. I want to read it on my Kindle. And this is what you're talking about. Like, you can get a digital download of Addie's magazine.
Well, it's a link.
Okay.
And so it'll go through, and it's just a digital flip book that can literally flip shape pages. And it's great. And then I go in, and all our advertisers, all the stories, we utilize QR codes a lot in our magazine to make it interactive.
Right.
So like songs, videos, websites, that kind of thing. And when we publish, I go in and I link every single one of those QR codes, every single URL in the magazine. And that way, when they're in the flipbook, all they have to do is click on that link and it'll open in a new tab on their desktop.
And I should say that Good Housekeeping is not a sponsor of the VBC. That kind of just popped into my head.
Right.
So, 2020, okay, pandemic, people are at home, people are reading, but, a lot of newspapers are shutting down. Magazines are having harder times getting subscribers. Was that part of your business plan in this of like, do I really want to start a magazine? Is that the route I want to go? Was that, at any point during the process, did you think this is going to be a hard thing to sell?
Oh, I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be going uphill nonstop.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, well, I just want digital. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I get it. A lot of people want digital, and that's great. But for me, I much prefer to have a physical newspaper.
Yeah.
I want a physical magazine.
Right.
And the reason I do is because I am on the frigging screen all day long. To me, reading is supposed to be a pleasure.
Yep.
It's not supposed to be, yeah, I can take in a ton of information all day long, but I don't read for pleasure when I'm on the computer, when I'm on screen.
Yeah.
I hear you. I read for, I don't really read at all. I read snippets. I scan through articles. I'm like, okay, I shut it down. I go back to work, and when you work nonstop on a screen, sometimes it's just nice to step back and go old school.
Yep.
And pick up a magazine, especially a really heavy, like this is almost a pound.
Awesome.
Because it's all gloss.
Yep.
And it is heavy.
And so it feels good. It's got that tangible,
and there's something you cannot get on screen, and that is the smell of ink.
Totally.
And I'm a Gen X. I'm old school. I want smell of ink. I like the smell of newspaper ink. So for me, I was like, I know I'm not the only one out there who likes tangible physical products.
Right.
And my challenge was, how do I make it affordable and yet not keep us underwater indefinitely? And of course, with the pandemic and then coming into 2021 with supply chain issues, I'm like, dang it, I have no choice but to raise prices.
Yeah.
And it stunk. But surprisingly, people would assume that like the majority of our subscribers, print subscribers, are like Vietnam era or Gen X. Nope.
What is the demographic?
70% of our print subscribers are post 9/11 vets.
Wow. I would not have guessed that number.
20% are Vietnam or older, and then the little bitty 10% Gen Xers. But that actually stands to reason. It really follows in line with the amount of service members in post, not, post 9/11 war eras versus Vietnam versus Gen X. I mean, obviously Gen X were the smallest.
Right.
So it follows that line pretty well. The same demographics go for our e-magazine. It's the same. 70% of our readers are post 9/11. Obviously, this is definitely geared. It's really geared for all.
Mm-hmm.
But we do gear it, the edginess of it, we do gear it to post 9/11.
And adults. Like
And Gen Xers, because we're not we're not super fussy kind of, we're not a super fussy kind of generation.
right.
So yeah, but it's geared to all. We have military history, we have DD 214 and beyond,
Mm-hmm.
we have financial, we have fitness, we have mental health, we face issues that face the veteran community head on. I will not say what I'm trying to be very nice. I'm very salty, so it's taking a lot of self-control from me.
I
But
appreciate that for my younger audience here
yes,
on the podcast.
but at the end of the day, we have something for everybody. I even do a crossword every issue.
I was going to say, but do you do coloring for the Marines?
No, we do not provide crayons to Marines. And
I'm sorry,
actually,
I had to slip in a Marine joke. I love my Marines, but
we do not provide crayons. However, we do have quite a few Marine writers.
yeah,
They do not write in crayon, surprisingly. So that's good.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always have to give some ribbing to some of the branches, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. But no, that answers my question, because the next question was going to be, how much do you cover in one magazine? It's not just veteran stories. You're covering topical issues. You're covering news highlights. Issues that they may find, DD 214 related.
Right.
Now, you mentioned a couple times the cost, so I hope my audience wouldn't think like, well, geez, what's this going to cost? But like, I checked your website. There's some subscriber levels. There's different ways they can engage. How do they do that?
Okay, so we haven't set a price for our e-magazine for 2023. I'm still going back and forth on that.
Mhm.
However, our print magazine, you can either pay monthly, and that's $7 a month
Mhm.
for 12 months, and you get 84-page 84-page magazines,
Right.
which I think is a pretty dang good deal.
Mhm.
Or it's 68 annually, which I know it seems like a lot, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, our costs went up and postage went way up.
Yeah.
Postage is insane right now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they're done with that.
So it's about a $16 savings if you pay
Right.
annually.
Right.
Okay, that's not too bad.
And and then of course, you can always pre-order as a copy for the issue coming out. You can check it out, see if you like it. That's 18 an issue, and at the end of the day, you guys are check it out. The print is really, really beautiful. We have lots of really amazing reviews from people who do subscribe. So when you subscribe, if you just keep scrolling down, you'll see all the little reviews that are populated underneath.
We'll have the link to the website here in the description. And can you share it for the audience, veteran audiences, like, I do want to check this out, but like, can you give me a highlight reel, maybe a smattering of some of your favorite stories over the last couple years?
Okay, so obviously my aunt story is one of my,
which sounds incredible,
one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Only because it's very near and dear to my heart. But they all are becoming near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
I did a story on Veteran Produce. It's an organization here in Texas, and they actually build hydroponic gardens in greenhouses. And the purpose of this is to help supply veterans with food, fresh organic food. And so that's what they do. And it's a really amazing organization. It's ran by a Navy chief. So chief, he's a great guy. And Veteran Produce. And, my left brain really, really got into it because, as much as I'm an artist with a graphic design and stuff and writing, I really love scientific and math stuff too. So it was really awesome for me to write that article and share. We did a story for Operation Combat Bike Saver. They're
Mhm.
amazing. They actually started an organization for like mechanical therapy. They literally bring vets in and help them build motorcycles.
Wow.
And
That's one of the things, not to interrupt you, sorry, but like
yeah,
it's one of the things that I've realized over the course of the life of the podcast, the Scuttlebutt podcast, is I keep coming across different ways for veterans to have different therapies,
mhm,
and everything from like stellate ganglion block to I just had a wonderful conversation with Timothy Kim. That's an upcoming episode about grappling martial arts and how that
right,
is a therapy. We recently did our first episode of season 7 was about psychedelics and that
right,
being a therapy.
right,
But yeah, going in and building a motorcycle, like going
yeah,
out and riding waves. It's like
right.
there's so many different ways that I've found that are incredible for veterans to engage with. That is part of their passion, but can also help them deal with their or
Well,
deal with
right. And
trauma.
we've also done a lot of equine therapy. We'll be
Mm-hmm.
doing more. There's a lot of equine therapies
Mm-hmm.
organizations out there, and they're all doing it differently, but they're all making a huge impact. One of the standards to be featured in our magazine as a nonprofit organization is one, I don't care how big you are or how small you are, you have to be actual boots on the ground making a difference in the lives of veterans.
Mm-hmm.
VSOs that have membership and that kind of thing. That's all well and good,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to highlight, for example, an American Legion post that all they have to offer vets is a bar to sit around and drown their sorrows. Sorry, it's just never going to happen.
Right.
Um, I want to know, what are you actually doing in the lives of veterans to make it better
Yeah.
for them? I'm also working with a lot of research organizations. In fact, I just connected with one that they're going to start doing an article as they continue their study. It's called Operation Deep Dive. And what they're finding is the VA, and some of your listeners may know this, some may not. We're very much into like facts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the VA, only 35% of 22 million veterans within the United States actually have benefits.
Mm.
65% do not.
Wow.
And so when the VA does their annual suicide rate study and that kind of thing, we did an article in summer, and I went to go check my staff writers data because I wanted to make sure, are we using the latest data, whatever. And I went and read the study that he used, which was 2021,
Mm-hmm.
and read the small print. They were using 2019 data.
Mm. Right.
And to me, that really was a red flag, to the point where I actually put a disclaimer in the article saying, oh, by the way, these numbers are actually coming from 2019, not 2021.
Right.
So I was connected to an organization that's actually taking a different route, with on the request of the DoD,
Mm-hmm.
but also they're going by state. So they're not tracking the data by patient, they're tracking it by state. And what they have found is that 22 a day isn't 22 a day. It's probably closer to 44 to 50 a day. It's so much higher. But realizing that the VA is only using 35%,
Yeah.
they've only got 35% of of the veteran population in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way they can track what they don't have access to.
Right.
So we're working with them to start bringing this to light in the veteran community,
Yeah.
which is one of my passions. We need to save the lives. Any vet that feels like they need to take their life is unacceptable to me.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm finding in the veteran community, just through this magazine and everything else we're doing, is veterans, businesses, organizations, individuals, we have had enough. And we are at the point where we're like, you know what? The VA is broken. Some are good, a lot are not. And what we'll do is we'll just take care of our own. We'll take care of our own. And so
Right.
that's exactly what we're doing. And you guys do it too through Veteran Breakfast Club. You guys are telling stories. You're letting people get it out. There's that's cathartic healing that
Yeah.
happens when you tell your veteran story. And that's one thing we also embrace is veterans who write down their stories. It's cathartic, it's healing.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that that's why I never say no,
Hmm.
because every veteran, no matter how benign your story is, because mine's pretty benign. I'm not a combat vet, you know, but even I have a story to tell.
Right.
And it's like a tapestry. Each
Hmm.
one of us is a thread. And when you turn it over, it creates this whole tapestry that's military history. We're all tied into military history. And even with whether it's dramatic or whether it's small, everybody has a voice. Every veteran has a voice. And that is our purpose. And that is what we are going to stick to.
I can think of no better note to end on. That was beautifully said. And I have not thought of that analogy or heard it quite said so well, of this idea of this tapestry and everybody being a part of the military history. That's incredible. Christine, I want to thank you for coming on to the Scuttlebutt and sharing your story and sharing everything about At Ease. I do hope our listeners subscribe to you in the magazine.
Me too.
Yeah,
Subscribe.
yeah,
Help us grow.
yeah, definitely. Nationwide.
Yeah.
So hopefully, check out the description, people listening. And please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell on YouTube so you're the first to know whenever we release new episodes. We hope to see you on a future episode of the Scuttlebutt. And if you want to find out more about Addie's Magazine, you can contact me at Sean, SHAUN, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. I'm happy to pass them on to you, Christine, if you like.
Right.
Yeah. And any final words before we end here?
It's not just subscribing. Yes, we love to subscribe, but if you own a business, if you want to get national coverage specifically to the veteran community,
Mm-hmm.
give me a ring, email me, whatever. And then, but more importantly, if you want to share your story, please email me. Like I said, I've never said no.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you may have to wait an issue or two before it gets in, just because of the amount of content we have. But at the end of the day, you will be published. I will never say no.
Excellent. Well, Christine, thank you again for coming onto the Scuttlebutt. I hope to have you on again
Yes,
in the future as At Ease continues to grow. I'm excited to see where it goes. And thank you.
thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Scuttlebutt. I'd like to take a moment to thank both of our sponsors, the first being D&D Metal Recycling and Auto Salvage. They began as a small hauling and used auto parts operation in the Pittsburgh area in the late 1970s, but they've grown into a full-service metal recycling company with 2 locations, Lawrenceville and Tarentum. D&D accepts all types of metal, both ferrous and non-ferrous, that may be generated by industrial manufacturing, construction and demolition, small commercial entities, as well as individual customers. They have a wide variety of material handling equipment and are capable of managing any type of job in a timely and efficient manner. You can contact them for quotes and availability at D&D. That's D&D autosalvage.com. Thank you so much to D&D. They've been a sponsor for quite some time, and we really appreciate their support. The second being tobacco-free Adagio Health. They are dedicated to reducing and preventing tobacco use and to getting the word out about the hazards of smoking and secondhand smoke. They're all about health. So they want people to quit, and they have classes and nicotine replacement therapy and a popular quit line, which is the easiest number to remember ever, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. They also educate people, children especially, about tobacco use from cigarettes, cigars, pipes, chew, snuff, and other nicotine products like vaping. Finally, tobacco-free Adagio Health advocates for public and private policies that ensure healthy places to live, work, and play. You can learn all of what tobacco-free Adagio Health offers at tobaccofree.adagiohealth.org, or you can watch our recent episode with tobacco-free Adagio Health on the Scuttlebutt, where they talk about a lot of the programs that they offer for those who are looking to quit. Thank you to both of our sponsors for their continued support of the Scuttlebutt podcast. We really appreciate it. Thanks.